Welcome to the third and last part of the story. If you missed the first two videos, please click on the pop-out button in the right-hand top corner of the screen to listen to them first. In today's video you will hear the final updates. Update.
First, I would like to thank everyone for the positive feedback and support in the comments and DMs. Also, apologies for the delay in the update. I waited for Luna to come back from her honeymoon so I can show her this post. Our therapist wanted us to have full transparency when it comes to this situation. I wanted to make sure for me to share more information since this is also about her. She read the post, but I refused to let her see any of the hateful comments considering how much she was crying from the post. Yet she had no issues with me posting an update. Then a tragedy happened with the passing of my grandmother, and I had to place it on hold. So, let's begin with where I left off. Jocelyn and I managed to get a double wide on our property and had everything ready for Luna and Roberto. Many people wondered why Jocelyn kept pushing to make peace in the beginning. Jocelyn didn't want my lingering anger to affect our family and wanted me to make peace with myself for our family's sake. I am grateful for that. As I mentioned before, Marisol was constantly calling me, and the day Luna left New York I spoke to her. She was crying and angry with me, telling me that I took her child and grandchild from her. I tried to explain to her that I wanted to rebuild my relationship with Luna, and almost immediately she began asking me about rebuilding my relationship with her. I had to tell her that I couldn't, which caused her to cry, and she hung up on me. Luna and Roberto loved the trailer, and the first thing Roberto did was starting the process to repay me. I told him that it wasn't needed, but he insisted, and I appreciated it. A few days later, Luna and I had our first therapy session, and I learned of all of the anxiety medication she was taking, and I learned that she suffered from chronic panic attacks. One thing I can share about our sessions is that Luna is very remorseful, and she suffered from years of verbal abuse from Marisol. There were things that shocked me. Some things that I found to be unbelievable were confirmed when I spoke to my former father-in-law. Marisol verbally and emotionally abused her. My cousin mentally destroyed her, and despite what my feelings were and the actions I took, I know I hurt her too. 2 weeks after they arrived, Roberto received news that he was being deployed sooner, so they had to move their wedding up. At first Luna wanted to wait for him to come home, but Roberto insisted. He wanted them to be married before he left. Jocelyn and I offered to help pay for the wedding, but Luna told me she only wanted me to walk her down the aisle and give her away. I know people kept telling me to get a DNA test because there wasn't one from the court due to the circumstantial evidence that was provided. Allow me to tell you there's no need for that. Luna is O positive, I'm AB negative, Marisol is B positive, and my cousin is O positive. However, despite what happened, Luna is my daughter. I only wished I wasn't blinded with rage. Anyway, the wedding had to be small since it was being held on my in-laws' ranch. My former father-in-law, Roberto's mother, Marisol, and my grandmother were invited. Only 2 RSVP. My grandmother couldn't come because she wasn't feeling well, and Marisol was admitted to a hospital for trying to hurt herself. Luna didn't take the news well, and I was angry at Marisol, because she expected Luna to come back to New York to help take care of her. On the weeks leading to the wedding, I learned I was going to be a father again, and I was ecstatic. Roberto learned the hard way about breaking a horse, and I began teaching him how to fix cars. Again, I like this kid. The day before the wedding, my former father-in-law arrived with Roberto's mother. His mother is a very kind person, and I commended her for raising a fine young man. My former father-in-law was stoic as always, but we spoke. He told me that he was disappointed that I left, but given the circumstances he understood. He only wished that his daughter would move on as well. On the day of the wedding, Jocelyn was Luna's maid of honor, and I tried my best not to cry as I walked her down, but it was difficult. It was even more difficult for her. During the reception we played the Quince song again for our father-daughter dance, and again she just held on to me. For those who wanted to know the song, it's Cinderella by Stephen Curtis Chapman. During their honeymoon things were getting back to normal, and I was planning to write an update, but a few before they came home, my grandmother passed. This hurt me because she wasn't just my grandmother, but my mother. As I mentioned, I never knew my parents. Both my mother and father passed away alongside my cousin's parents when I was a few months old from a car accident, and she raised us together. So, while preparing to go to New York for the funeral, I was trying to control myself and prepare to see my cousin. We went as a family to New York. My grandmother was laid to rest in Cypress Hill Cemetery. Yet during the funeral, with my wife, daughter, and son-in-law beside me, I wasn't angry. I didn't bother acknowledge my cousin during the funeral, and as we left, my cousin kept trying to talk to me, practically begging for me to yell at him, to hit him, and for some reason, me ignoring him just hurt him even more. A few days before we went back to Idaho, Luna and I visited Marisol at Bellevue. She was excited to see us, said that she missed the wedding, and we thought everything was fine until we had to leave. She began to cry, telling the orderly that she wanted to go home with her husband. Begging me to take her home, that I was the love of her life and to please just take her home, and I just cried as they took her away. Luna broke down as well, and it took a while before either of us had the strength to leave the visitors' lounge. My former father-in-law told us that Marisol was never the same after the divorce. She still celebrated my birthday and our anniversary, and he would argue with her to move forward, but she never did. He said she isolated herself and was verbally abusive towards Luna for a long time. Luna's pregnancy just took her out of the trance. He said that the 13 months of being nice to our daughter doesn't take away from the 4 years of negligence and abuse she has done to her. He hopes the hospital will help her. Jocelyn told me that I will have to forgive her so she could forgive herself. Right now as I'm typing, things are okay. Jocelyn and I are as thick as thieves. Roberto left to Saudi Arabia last week and Luna is trying to appear strong with him gone, but she's doing it poorly. She has been clinging on to me and Jocelyn. I thought Jocelyn might be bothered, but she has been loving spending time with her. She is indeed a wonderful woman. She has been taking Luna all across town, introducing her as her daughter. I thought it might bother Luna, but she was very happy about it. I forgave Marisol and I hope she can find the strength to move on.
Update.
Before I begin, I want to thank all of you, even the haters and the doubters. When I posted a year ago, I was in a dark place. I was always angry, lost, depressed. The people here really helped me, and the gratitude that I have for all of you will be with me until the day I die. This community helped me get my daughter back. All of you helped me get my life back. The past year has been great, but not without its ups and downs. I have another son and Jocelyn wants to try for another one. I'm going to have another grandchild. Luna is 2 months pregnant, and my son-in-law has applied for officer training school. I'm hoping he gets in. My daughter has been getting a little better since the therapist started her in prolonged exposure. For a while her panic attacks went from mild to severe, and thanks for suggesting exposure therapy because it has been a blessing. Our therapy sessions together were hard in the beginning. Listening to everything she went through, she owned up to her mistakes and I owned up to mine. My in-laws have her working on the ranch, nothing fancy, feeding horses, putting out hay, and my mill has been teaching her on herding bison. It makes me smile when I see her on a horse, her face lights up. She and Jocelyn act like mother and daughter, and seeing how Jocelyn is overprotective of her is adorable. I'm blessed to marry such a wonderful woman. When I met her, she had just come out of a very abusive relationship. She had a swollen eye and bruises around her throat, and I volunteered to fix her father's 3 tractors for free since they were damaged due to her ex pouring salt and sugar in the tanks. At first, I minded my business, but as she brought me food we talked and got to know one another, and a month later we had our first kiss. It was great, took her out to dinner, and a few days later her ex came to see me and tried to scare me off. I put the fear of God into him. Sorry, went off topic there. In the first week of May, my ex-father-in-law passed away and I was afraid that Luna would relapse, but she was strong, thanks to Roberto being there with her. That man had a strong impact on her life, and the level of gratitude that I owe him will never be repaid. We all flew to New York, and he had his viewing like a true Boricua. He had a live salsa band, an open bar, and a buffet with patels, pernil, sancocho. All of his favorite foods were there for all to chow down. Do not mourn me, celebrate me. That was the banner over his casket that was draped with the Puerto Rican flag, and he was wearing his vanilla ice cream suit. I couldn't help but smile the entire time. Marisol was there, but she was just staring into nothing. It was like her brain shut off only to turn back on when Luna or I sat next to her, and she began talking about preparing for the Quins. After a while she realized where she was, and her brain shuts off again. Her therapist told us during the second day of the viewing that her mind is stuck in a moment she was at her happiest. When Luna walked away, the therapist told me that in her professional opinion, she believed my cousin may have raped Marisol and her mind protected her from that trauma. Rationalized it and made her believe it was a moment of weakness. That messed me up, and I told Jocelyn what the therapist said, and she was shocked. She insisted that I should tell Luna, but I was afraid to. She took so many steps to get better, I didn't want her to revert back. Instead, we told Roberto first, who wanted to go and find my cousin, but I talked him down, and then we sat as a family and spoke to Luna. It was a bad night. A really bad night. We had an incident at the burial 2 days later. My cousin showed up uninvited and caused a scene. He was drunk, and I wanted to end him, I believe is the proper term. Instead, I told him to leave. Roberto was holding me back and my cousin began shouting that he was always better than me, and always will be, and it was because of him and his daughter that I made my life better, so in a way he's responsible for me bettering myself. I got angry, and I practically lifted Roberto off the ground to get him, but Luna punched him in the mouth and began pummeling him. She was screaming and crying, she was so angry while attacking him. I briefly hesitated, and Roberto pulled her off of him. As he was getting up, Jocelyn punched him and knocked him out, breaking her index finger in the process. Before we went back home, we had a family meeting and we all agreed that we would transfer Marisol to a mental facility near us since she has no one else. We are still going to therapy, and with this new realization, my daughter is trying to cope with the fact that she might be a product of rape. Before this happened, I was planning to adopt her since legally she's no longer my daughter. I want to make it official again, but I feel like the timing might not be right. I will answer any questions. I owe this community a lot and God bless you all.
Update.
Hello everyone, it's been a while and I would like to express my gratitude to all of you. My family continues to grow. I have 2 grandchildren, a boy and a girl, 2 sons and another daughter on the way. For a while I was guilt-stricken, being a bit depressed after being told what happened in Marisol's hypnotherapy session. From the explanation, she said no twice before freezing up for over a minute, and she begged him to stop, which was when my cousin finished and got off of her. The therapist said she rolled to her side and kept repeating over and over, it was a mistake. And she convinced herself that it was a mistake. That truly impacted me. It caused this cloud of depression to hover over me. I blamed myself, I blamed my cousin, I began playing scenarios in my head, focusing on the could've, would've, should've, and it hit so hard. I told myself that my cousin was right, I ruined her. I struggled to remember every family interaction to see if there were any signs. Anything that would have indicated that he did something to her, and there was. Whenever he was in the house, she was never in the same room with him or alone with him. I never noticed it, but now, everything is so vivid. Hindsight is a real bitch. Over the next few months, Luna and I sat in a family therapy session with Marisol. Like many of you, the therapist also asked me what I would have done if Marisol told me the truth when I got out. Honestly, I would have taken him out. If she would have told me years later, I would have beaten him by an inch of his life. Finally, I was asked if she would have told me during the quince. I said I wouldn't believe her at first. However, I would have asked, poked, prodded, and eventually found out the truth. The way I was feeling back then, I would have sent my cousin to the hospital, but I wouldn't have skipped town. I believe that things would have been dramatically different. Eventually, Marisol became consolable. She cried and apologized to both of us. As time went on, Marisol confessed that since she couldn't give me another child, she focused on being the best wife and partner she could be, and when I left, she admitted that when she looked at our daughter, all she saw was my cousin. I asked her why she allowed my cousin to still come to our home. She said that in a way he was my brother. I was always so proud of him, especially when he became a pastor. I spoke very highly of him. I always went to him for advice, and in her mind, she saw him as a mistake. A brief moment of mistake that wouldn't go away. So, she avoided him at every turn. Luna's panic attacks came back, a bit more aggressive, but now she's doing well. I officially adopted her last month. It was my birthday gift to her. She couldn't stop crying, she looked so happy. From what I heard, my cousin moved to Puerto Rico after getting fired. The bank had to let him go due to the vast number of people walking into the bank and making a scene. We placed a new trailer next to Luna for Marisol. She was released in mid-March, and at first, it was awkward. Extremely awkward. I used to watch TV shows with scenarios like this. Having your ex-wife and current wife near one another. On TV they're friendly. That's TV. Jocelyn was very civil but made a clear boundary for Marisol to follow. However, Marisol told us that she doesn't want to stay on our property. She wants to stay near us, but all she wants is to be a mother and grandmother. She wants her and me to be friends, but distant friends, and I could respect that. A few times Jocelyn and Marisol butted heads, mostly on child rearing and cooking habits. My in-laws, like me, felt awkward about the entire situation, and it's not helping that my brother-in-law is a bit smitten with Marisol to the point that Jocelyn smacked him in the back of his head so she could knock some sense into him. It didn't work. The man is 2 years older than me, a widower of 2 years with 3 little girls. He's a really nice guy, a great wrangler, and he's been around my property more than I could care for just so he could try to talk to Marisol. I don't mind, but Jocelyn does. She's very overprotective of her big brother, and she feels that if the two of them do get together, she would not know if it was genuine. I could respect that. There was an incident on Luna's birthday, shortly after giving her the adoption papers. I danced with Luna, and then with Jocelyn, and when Marisol tried to dance with me after dancing with Roberto and Jocelyn's brother, I respectfully declined, but it enacted Jocelyn's green-eyed monster and she became a bit territorial. On Easter, we were watching the kids hunting eggs and I overheard Marisol tell Jocelyn that she envied her. She was able to give me children. Jocelyn told her that Luna is my daughter. Despite the circumstances, Luna was mine and she should always remember that. Marisol cried and it was the first time I saw them getting along. This is where I'm at right now. Hopefully, everything balances out.
My opinion. Thank you for the story and the updates. I'm impressed on how it went on. At first I thought Luna was not that into you, but after a few updates I realized how bad the things were to her and how she needed you to be in her life. I'm glad Marisol has recovered and now all of you are fine. But living in the same place for all of you sounds a bit awkward. Marisol will be better living somewhere else, close, but not in the same place. It's just my opinion. I believe you have lots of smart people around to help you with all of it. I'm very glad you met Jocelyn. She is such a caring and open person. The way she helped you out, the way she supports you, Luna and everyone around. I don't feel like the world deserves such a person. She opened her heart for Luna, for Marisol even when she didn't have to. She is the bright light in life of all of you. And, of course, congratulations on expanding your family. I wish all the best for you. All you suffered led to such a perfect happy ending. I hope it will go better and better all the time. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe on my channel.